used to wear waistcoats, bright waistcoats to go to work and stuff like that. And then I used to get flack. And then I turn around, my waistcoat's gone and it's hanging up from the ceiling. But it was just fun.
Yeah, it's just banter and camaraderie, isn't it? Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast Chatzzz. And we've got a very special guest today. Andrew, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, nice to meet you, mate.
Yeah, nice to meet you. So this is the second time of asking, isn't it? So we organised it last Friday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was running late. I did apologise, but then here we are. We rescheduled, and thank you very much.
No problem.
So I think I missed you on LinkedIn, didn't I, to organise this?
Yeah, LinkedIn has been a really good platform for my industry. And also being able to spread news about the industry as well. I think that's what I use it mostly for.
Yeah, and I think that's how I came across you, because obviously Cumbria is a relatively small place, isn't it? And if you're posting good content, it gets shared across the LinkedIn sphere.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. So if you were meeting someone for the first time or introducing yourself to someone for the first time, how would you do that?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, basically, I normally explain my background. So I'm an artist. I went to art college. Ended up working in a traditional model makers. And then I saw this new technology at the time, 30 years ago, which was the 3D printing. And I've been doing that for 30 years now, promoting it. And I'm not about promoting myself. I'm all about promoting the industry and technology and getting people to use it properly. I want it to grow. After 30 years, it's where I expected it to be after 10 years. So I find it a little frustrating.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because I suppose me personally, 3D printing, I've only really came across it. I've been familiar with it since maybe university.
Yeah.
So like 5-ish so years. I remember on our business campus, they just got one in, but they had like one.
Yeah.
And they started doing it, and we were like, what is this 3D printing thing? It's like, that's
I
weird.
think what's made it become more popular and nowadays is, a lot of the machines were covered by patents. And then all of a sudden the patent ran out, and then the smaller machines were made for the home use. And that's really taken off. Yeah. So that's interesting, because I've started getting involved in that side of things. Most of my stuff's been with industrial printers. But then there's always a question, what's an industrial printer? I've used a machine which costs £150 to do an industrial application. So then that machine to me becomes an industrial machine. So.
All right, cool. So then the 3 facts. So I'm putting you on the spot because you haven't prepped them, have you? So what are you going to say?
I don't do prep. I think I always speak from my heart. So
yeah,
I think that's just me. That's the way I do it. So
it's the best way to go. So yeah, 3 facts about yourself. Let's go. What are you thinking?
So what areas do you want to know about?
Anything about you. It could be fun. So say, for example, my 3 would be, I was born in America.
Okay.
I've been on TV, and I haven't drank alcohol for nearly 3 years in August.
Well done.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So
something like that. It doesn't have to be. It can be whatever.
So I'm actually Welsh. So I was born in Wales. Don't sound like it, unfortunately. One thing, I suppose that's one thing that I really always wanted was a Welsh accent.
But I love a Welsh accent. I went to uni in Cardiff.
Right, so yeah.
Whereabouts in Wales?
I'm actually from North Wales.
Oh, North Wales, yeah. So near Liverpool, like you say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my grandparents were from Liverpool, so that's probably where the accent gets. I like to travel lots.
Yeah.
And my industry has taken me all over the place. And the third one, which I've decided I'm going to talk about, is I've just been diagnosed as being neurodiverse. So that's this year. So that's the latest fact about me. There you go.
Yeah, no, they're 3 good ones. So whereabouts in Wales did you grow up then?
Grew up in a place called Holywell.
Okay.
My family, all of my family, going back a couple of generations, have always been in the building industry. So, carpenters. My granddad was a carpenter. My dad was a carpenter. My brother's a pipe fitter. My nephew's a carpenter.
Yeah.
So I've always had the skills that I could do that. And when I was 14, I was helping my dad build extensions and stuff like that. So that's always been in there. But I've got this artistic streak, and we found out there's quite a few people in the family have. But I've been able to draw since I was like 4 years old.
What did you like to draw? Because I used to like to draw when I was growing up.
Horses, birds, it's all wildlife, most of it. And then going through sort of school, I got involved with engineering design. So then I looked at being an architect when I was 16. It was architect and that sort of stuff. And unfortunately, in schools, all of the creative subjects are always on the same choice list. You have to make choices about which one you're going to. And it was either I had to choose art or engineering because they were in the same slot.
Yeah.
So I chose to sort of do engineering design.
Why?
Because it was, again, at the time I was thinking of being an architect.
Yeah.
And then when I stayed on and did my A-levels, I could actually choose art again then.
Right, nice.
And I also did woodwork, so it was all hands-on stuff. And I ended up doing my you won't get this one, O-levels. So that's GCSEs,
yeah.
And then my A-level in art. I did it normally sort of one takes 3 years, the other one takes 2 years, but I did them both in the 2 years. And it was because to me, that wasn't hard work because I could do it anyway. Yeah. And then I decided I was going to go to art college.
Yeah. At 18 was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
18. Never got my English, which is an interesting fact. Sat it 5 times. I was terrible at spelling. But
you don't need that these days, do you? Like Grammarly and stuff.
Yeah, but actually, having my own business has really helped because you're sending that many emails. I've learned how to spell properly. I still question myself sometimes. But then after time, it's correct, but I just doubt myself, and that takes a bit of getting used to. But
spelling is hard, though. I think, especially for like foreign people learning the English language. Say my barber, I think he's Kurdish.
Yeah.
And he's learning English at Carlisle College at the moment. And he's saying, English is so hard because obviously it's like there, and there, isn't there?
Yeah.
3 the same words, but spelled completely different. And you're like, how would somebody even be able to know that? And people still now get it wrong. And I'm like, what?
I think what's interesting though, language is, I suppose I've always been a person that I have to be interested in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I've got my own business, I work all over the world. Yeah. And a lot of time is in Europe. And I spent a lot of time working for a German company before I set my own business up. So then I actually learned to speak some German, and I can understand German. If I'm in a conversation and people are talking, I get it, I understand it. It's knowing how to answer back.
Yeah.
But around situations when you're in a hotel and most of the language I use then is German, and in fact I never got my English, but I couldn't speak a bit. But then I think what it is, it's something like I always say that maths, when they're on about maths I was okay at.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of kids that aren't.
Yeah.
Right? And one of the things I think they should do with maths is teach people applied maths.
What, like budgeting and mortgages?
Yeah, things that you don't use.
Yeah.
Because in relation to something that you do.
Yeah.
If you are making something or you're doing something and you say, right, maybe you're a games designer, right, and you actually understand that you've got to use maths to make this thing work, then it's interesting.
Yeah.
So I think they actually teach maths the wrong way around. They should do the applied maths first and then take it more advanced.
Yeah, if they want to do like A-level or university.
Yeah, you could get really. I use maths all the time now.
Yeah, every day, isn't it? It's important. Like I really enjoyed maths. I was quite good at maths at school. I always used to remember it. I always used to picture everything with like pound signs in front of, because I was like, it's money. So like you say, it's applied, isn't it? So you're thinking, this is the money.
Yeah, you apply it to something that a child is interested in. It's a bit like the 3D printing. I go into schools and I teach kids how to do that. And that's really interesting. I've enjoyed it. It's enjoyable to pass the information on that I've got. And
it's real for them though as well.
Yeah, but then we're having to teach them certain things, and in the end, I actually get them, if they do it, if they go through the process quick enough, I'll say, right, go and design yourself something, a key ring. Yeah. And then once they're doing their own thing, then they're a lot more interested in it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because they want to do that, isn't it? Rather than they're just being forced to do it. So then 18, you went to college then. Why did you want to go to college? So 18 it's hard for 18-year-olds to know what they want to do. I always say this to people, that 18, you think you know everything, don't you? But you don't have a clue what's going on.
I think as you get older, you appreciate that more.
Yeah.
Right. When I go into the schools now to teach the kids, I say to them, look, I said, piece of advice I'll give you. And I've had it where I've been a moderator on a panel, and you've got a range of people. You've got designers, you've got model makers, you've got entrepreneurs, inventors even. And as I say to the kids, what have these people got in common? Because this is at the end of the presentation. And they'll say, oh, they work in 3D printing. I said, no. So they've all got a passion. They've got a passion. Like, I've been doing this for 30 years. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Right? And I say to the kids, I said, if you've got passion for something, I said, follow it. I said, because you've got to do it for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you get paid to do something like that, it's not work though. It's fun as well as the other side of it. And that's one thing that I try and get over to the children. But like you said, who knows what you want to do? When they've got to make decisions about which subjects to study, nobody knows.
No.
I went to art college and now I've been doing 3D printing for 30 years and it's...
Time flies like that. So how was art college then? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, loved it. I was a bit different. So I've always been a bit different. I said, coming from a local town in Hollywood, now I used to have my ear pierced.
Not got that anymore.
No, still see it there. Just dressed a bit different, bright red shoes. And it wasn't to stand out and anything. It was just that I wore things that I liked, basically.
Just express yourself kind of thing.
Yeah, and I suppose the kids nowadays do exactly the same. Our college was really good. The first part of it, you went to what was called a foundation course, which is in Wrexham, and that's a year of doing absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Throwing paint on the wall, sculptures. So it was deciding what part of art that you wanted to be involved in.
Okay.
And then I got involved in this thing, it's called product design. So for me, that was a perfect balance of engineering and art.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was designing
products.
Designing products, making them look good. Yeah. So the engineering stuff that I did, but they went together really well.
Cool.
So, but the difference is when you go to art college, they want you to express yourself. And I was a bit different because I always wanted to, whenever I designed something, I personally had to know, can you make it? So I didn't see the point of actually designing something like that looks cool, but you can't actually produce it. Yeah. The difference now is you can, because you can use a 3D printer to do it. But at the time, if I was designing a lamp, I would go to a lighting company and said, look, this is my idea. Do you think it's possible? Can we try it? And they used to want to work with it as well, which was interesting.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so then I came out, and the reason I did that is because I suppose I realised that when I was going to leave college, I had to get a job.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, but knowing that you could design things that worked.
Yeah, that the business actually liked as well.
Yeah, so it was really good. Got to meet some really cool friends. It was a bit different back in, I'm trying to think when it was now, 80s.
Yeah.
Was it 80s, something like that? Yeah, it was interesting times. But yeah, it was really good.
Yeah. So then, like you said, when you realised you had to get a job, what kind of jobs were you looking for, or what jobs were you hoping to do?
Well, I think one of the things that, and I think this is still relevant now. You go to university at the time. I was the first person in my family ever to go to university, which was interesting.
That's a good achievement, yeah.
You come out expecting to get paid a lot of money, and in reality, you don't. Yeah. So what you see is, and I think that's still relevant now.
Definitely.
Yeah, so you go in there, and I, to be honest, I feel really, what's the word? Is it sorry? You know, these young people going into university now, and they've got to take a loan out, and they come out of university with a loan, and you just think, you know, why?
Yeah, and say, I'm prime example, say I went to university for 4 years because I did a placement year as well in industry. I went to hospitality and events. You come out and you're applying for graduate schemes and say, yeah, hospitality is not the best degree, but I was going to get 19 to 22,000 for a graduate scheme. And you think you could have got a job at 16 or 18 and it'd be earning more, but yeah, maybe you might have better prospects in the future. But you think it's just to go to party these days, isn't it? And just buy yourself a bit of time.
I think that
for most people.
No, that's to be honest, that's always been part of it. Yeah. Going to university isn't just about getting a qualification.
No,
it's actually learning to mix with people,
networking.
Yeah, it's everything, and that is part of it. You know, getting drunk and learning that really, that's not. Sometimes it's not good to do that, but that's part of life, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So then, yeah, what we were saying about what jobs you were hoping for or applying for.
Well, again, I wanted to be a product designer, so you're applying for product designer jobs, but there wasn't that many. You always think there's lots, but there isn't. Yeah. So I applied for quite a few jobs. Ended up doing a graphic designer's job, which is totally not what I was trained in doing. But at the same time, I applied for a job up in Manchester at a company called Engineering Design and Models. It was the biggest model makers in Europe at the time.
Yeah.
And this was before the 3D printers, so we were making models by hand. Now, one of my tutors in college said to me, if you don't get as a job as a designer, he said, the detail that you put into your models, you'll get a job as a model maker.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting a job at this model maker, but as a designer.
Yeah.
But I was designing. So my first job when I left college was to design the Sellafield Visitors Exhibition Centre.
Oh, that's cool, isn't
Right.
it? Yeah.
So I was like 23-year-old kid.
Literally a kid.
Yeah, working with guys in their 40s and 50s. And I remember working in the factory one day, and a visitor came and they said to one of my colleagues, they said, "What's that young lad do?" I said, "Why?" I said, "Well, he's telling you older guys what to do."
Yeah.
But when I designed, that was the other thing. When I designed stuff, I realized pretty early on that I don't know everything. And when I'm designing stuff, I used to say to my boss, right, who's going to be making it? And I'd go and sit down with a guy that was going to be manufacturing this. I said, look, here's my idea. Do you think you can do better? Is there any better ways? You've got more experience than me. And we'd sit down and work it out together. And then I would change the design so it was easier to make. Yeah. And I think that's something that is missing a lot nowadays. I learned so much off people in their 60s.
Yeah.
That with skills that now have gone. It was fun. They used to take the mick out of me because I was a young guy.
Yeah, it's part of the crack though.
Also, I used to wear waistcoats, bright waistcoats to go to work and stuff like that. And then I used to get flack, and then I turn around, my waistcoat's gone, and it's hanging up from the ceiling. But it was just fun.
Yeah, it's just banter and camaraderie, isn't it? But I think, like you say, that you learn stuff from the older men or older colleagues. So that's one thing that you can't learn or teach in this experience.
Yep.
Like, yeah, maybe the stuff that they learn and their skills or whatever aren't relevant now, but it's the experience of being within that industry, and you'd be able to, hopefully they can rub that off on you. Because even for me, when I first started like 4 or so years ago, I think, bloody hell, I wouldn't have done that now if I knew what I did now, but that's just experience of being around long enough.
Yeah.
So then after that first job, then how did things progress? Did you get like recognized and sent into a different role, or did you kind of...
No, I stayed there for a few years. It was really a really nice place to work, and also it's still going.
Yeah, that's cool.
They've had to diversify, and they've had to diversify basically because of 3D printing.
Yeah.
So at the time, we used to make models of places like Manchester Airport. I remember actually this thing was popping up in some. So I designed, I think it was the 25th anniversary sculpture for Manchester Airport, which the Queen unveiled, which was...
Really?
Yeah, that was an achievement. But these things you forget about because it was part of what
you're just doing the job, yeah.
Yeah. So then what happened? One of my colleagues at this model makers, he left and went to work for a company in America. And he came back one weekend and we went for a beer, had a good chat, and he said, "Have you seen this new technology?" I said, "I've heard of it." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Look," he said, "if you get a chance," he said, "do it." He says, "because it's going to be huge."
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, there was a job advert, a tiny job advert in the Manchester Evening News to go and run a 3D printer, or an SLA machine. It was called stereolithography. That was the very first printer at Liverpool University. I applied for it, got a job, actually took a $6,000 pay cut.
Just because of that conversation, you thought,
I saw it working.
Yeah.
I went down for the interview and I saw this machine working, and I just looked at this machine and I just thought, man, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I must admit, even now, when it's finished, I'll have to maybe show you the machines one day. When it's finished and this thing comes out of a vat of liquid resin, you just stand there like, it's like, I don't know, do you remember Star Trek?
Vaguely.
Right, so in Star Trek, they had a thing called a replicator. It's like a microwave on the wall. You press a button and this thing would just appear. To me, when I first saw this machine, it was like, okay, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's some alien kind of shit.
Yeah. And but it still has that effect on you when you see something, especially I think one of the interesting things that you do is when you first design something yourself. You design it, put it in a machine, and then 4 hours later, you've got a physical object in your hand.
It's like, I made that kind of thing, because that's what I mean. I've never actually seen one in person, so if I was able to see one, I'd be like, whoa, that is crazy.
And it depends which one you see as well.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that you have at home, they extrude plastic, but that's cool because you can see them and you can make it in real materials. There's some that actually work upside down and it's working, but you can't see it working, which is the parts when they come off are phenomenal, but it's just when there's nothing to look at.
Yes.
Whereas the ones I've got up in Kendal, which you'll have to come down and have a look. You see a laser dancing on the top of this liquid. And then all of a sudden, when it's finished, this object appears out of the vat. Yeah. And it's just like, whoa. The other thing is I could scan you, 3D print it, and then you'd be looking in the vat and you'd see your head come out and it would be absolutely a replica of you, and that's
that'd
weird.
Be scary.
It's weird.
So then, obviously that job, when you got the job, what was it like the first day or the first few months? I bet it was very surreal, kind of.
Well, it was interesting because
what time was this? About
92, 93.
And how old were you then, approximately?
27. Yeah, about 27.
Yeah. All right. So like you say, about 25 years ago?
It's 30 years ago when I started doing it, yeah.
30 years ago, yeah. Very different to now. But yeah, what was it like then? Because it was just coming.
Well, to be honest, we had a computer there. So you got a laptop now, right? So the machine itself, I think was about £280,000. It's 30 years ago.
That's a lot.
Right. The computer that ran it was called, I'm trying to think now, an Indigo, 40 grand. Yeah. For a laptop, not a laptop, a computer. Yeah, a box. Yeah, but the only other people that were using them were people like Walt Disney.
Yeah.
So it was big companies. I didn't know how to do CAD because there was no CAD when I was in university. So I basically... at the time I lived in North Wales, used to go to the Mersey Tunnel. Yeah. And I got fed up of sitting in traffic. So I used to go in an hour early and I taught myself how to do CAD. Oh. So then I could design something, make it. It was set up to help the students do their PhDs and things, but also to let small to medium enterprises, so SMEs, use a technology that they wouldn't be able to afford themselves. So I was lucky. What I could do with it is I put a part on and I build it. And I say, that took 4 hours. I'm like, I wonder if I can build it faster. Yeah. So I put the same parts on, change the parameters. And then that's how I learned most of what I know is I'd make the thing fail. Yeah, so I'd push it. Then it would fall over and you go, right, okay, on that type of geometry, if I back off by 10%, I know I can build that now in half the time I used to be able to do it. Mm-hmm. And the only other people that had these machines at the time were automotive. There was a few companies that offered them as a service, but they were only interested in building parts. So as long as the part came off, it didn't matter how long it took at the time. Yeah. Because it
had to be that efficient.
Yeah. Whereas I was more interested in, right, how can I push this to its limits? Yeah. And that's still the same now. That's what drives me, basically. Yeah. Doing things that haven't been done before.
Where do you think you get that from then?
I think it's just in me. It's the challenge. Yeah. You know, it's if we didn't have people like didn't push things, then we just stand still.
Yeah. And like it's just, I can't remember who was speaking to maybe the other day. It's like asking why does that say take 4 hours? Why can't it take 2 hours? And figuring out how to do it, because even like society, if you're told this is the way to do it, you should always do it like this, and you'd be like, well, no, you could do it another way and be way easier or better or quicker or faster and that kind of thing. But not everyone's like that. Some people are just happy to just be like,
well, I think maybe just, I told you I've been diagnosed with being neurodiverse. Maybe that's part of it. I think as an artist as well, if you look in the past, you think like Leonardo da Vinci, yes, artist, right? If you actually go and look at the stuff that he designed, it's crazy. Yeah, tank, helicopter, right? And that's an artist. But again, he's got an engineering mind as well. Yeah, and so that's maybe it's the art side of things as well. Yeah, and it's also what helps is when you work with the right people. So you need people inside companies that are prepared to push the technologies as well. So I'm lucky that I work with quite a few people that are like, let's have a go. You know, like I install the machines and taught the people in Formula One teams how to do it. And I work with some great guys, still good friends, and we still enjoy doing things that people say we can't do.
Yeah.
And that's the buzz, basically.
Team's important though, isn't it? Like you say, you can't do everything yourself.
I think that's when you have to realise that you can't. But I think one of the big problems for me is I'm a small company. There's only 3 of us. So when I want to do something, or when I want the company to do something, I can change and just decide that I'm going to do it.
Yeah, be agile. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the thing I struggle with is when you're in big companies and everything happens so slowly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows us that's so and so, that's so and so, that's so and so, and then they build it back down, and then next year.
But the good thing is, most of the people in big industry that are involved in additive manufacturing or 3D printing they're the same. They want it to happen. So then that's what's going to change the big companies. You know, and this technology helps them do things that they couldn't do before. They can do it faster now. They're not wasting as much material. It's a lot greener. Yeah. So it's interesting times.
Yeah. So what happened after Liverpool uni then? What was next for you? When did you decide?
I didn't. So basically, what happened is, I was there 2 years. So the machine that I used to use, and I'm actually still on it, was an SLA 3D Systems SLA 250/40.
Yes.
And that was made by a company called 3D Systems. And then after 2 years of being at Liverpool University, I was approached by 3D Systems. And so I ended up working for the guy that invented the technology, which for me was like, wow, how did that happen? So you got to meet the people that invented it, you know, and those people now, a lot of those people are really good friends still. Yeah. You know, I was at an awards ceremony the other week, and a lady that I used to work with, and she was a mentor 30 years ago, won a place in the Hall of Fame. Yeah. And I remember I walked into the exhibition and I saw someone that I know, and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And I just looked across and I went, "Hang on a minute, it's Diana Cayless." I'm like, "Sorry, I've got to go and say hello." Absolute star. So she won the award, which is amazing, and to see her after so many years was a pleasure.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because I'd imagine working for the people who invented it, they just think differently, wouldn't they?
The guys that invented it, you know, you just think, how did he invent it?
Yeah.
And then the other thing which was really interesting, it was the guy that developed it. They were based in Los Angeles. So that was my first trip ever abroad on business, was to fly to Los Angeles.
Not a bad one.
It was February. I got off an airplane and I just thought, man, I could get used to this. It was crazy, absolutely crazy. So, but I remember working on a weekend over there. And a lot of American companies, they don't work weekends. And we had a delivery. And the guy said, "What do you guys do?" And we told him, and he's like, "What, you make things?" Because, you know, it's very famous for being like Hollywood and movies and stuff like that. But this company manufactured these machines, and it was just cool.
Yeah, that is cool. What was LA like then?
Interesting. I got told off a few times because I just jump in the car and go and have a look around. I just walk around. You know, I remember dropping someone off at LAX, and then I just decided I was going to go for a walk down to Venice Beach. And then I got told off because I shouldn't be walking around Venice Beach on my own. And, you know, but then I go to play. I don't walk around like a holiday maker. I just want to see things. And it was really cool. Artists, I ended up talking to a street artist. And it's part of life experience. And all these experiences help you in his job. Yeah, you know, there's times when you see something and maybe you'll use it at a later date in a project you're working on.
Yeah.
So
that's true. And you said you've travelled the world with 3D printers as well, haven't you? So what other kind of cool trips have you been on then?
So we've got China, so Shanghai, that's interesting.
Yeah. Because
I know there's a lot at the moment about China, but Shanghai was interesting because you wouldn't know you were in China, basically.
Okay.
It's absolutely, the architecture, the city, the modern stuff. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. But then there is another side, which is the same as any country, really. You fly back 4 hours into China, and then you're in the middle of nowhere. And people were looking at me like, who's this guy? Because they had never met a European before.
He doesn't look like us.
yeah. So, I actually remember I arrived at the hotel, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning, with a couple of guys I was working with, the Chinese sort of escorts. And I had food on the street, chicken's feet, which is interesting, yeah. I don't mind trying stuff.
Is that nice? Would you recommend that?
It's interesting.
Can you remember what it tastes like?
Chicken.
Was it like chicken?
No, to be honest, there's too many bones in it. There's too many bones in it. And I think as a Brit, what you do is you associate where chickens walk. So then it's like, eh. But then I remember just the ladies that served me, I said, come on, we'll take a picture and we'll put it on Twitter. And then I'm like, actually, you can't because you're not allowed to use Twitter. So then the cultural side of things is different.
Yes. Yeah. China's an interesting place, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it. It's a nice place. And it's also, I think that's one of the other fun things is learning about different cultures. Like how to take a business card off a Chinese person. If you don't know, you can insult them really bad. So basically, that's their details on a piece of paper. So when you get handed a business card, they hand it you with 2 hands, and basically you take it and you read it, and then you turn it over and you read the other side and you say thank you very much. Whereas a lot of people go, thanks very much, put it in your back pocket. That's an insult. Yeah, because you're not respecting what the people have just given you
information.
So I've had to explain that to my engineer. Because we were at a show in Frankfurt and he did that, and I'm like,
"What's it there, son?"
But again, it's
experience, like you were saying before, isn't it?
Yeah, and I also respect different cultures. You have to.
Yeah, you have to because you're in their country.
Yeah.
Because I've been to Dubai a couple of times recently, and completely different culture over there, isn't it? It's like, well, they're kind of modernized into more like the Western side of the world, but it's just like you cover yourself up, and they always go to pray at parts of the days, and like they've got the prayer rooms and all that kind of stuff, and obviously the food, and they don't serve alcohol in most places, and all that kind of thing, which I think is quite cool, and it's interesting, isn't it? Different to the UK, definitely, and just learning about different places is fascinating, and people that don't travel or want to travel, I just think, why not? There's such a big, wide world out there, isn't there?
I think it was my first time of travelling was actually at the model makers.
Was it?
Yeah, so I designed some training aids for fighter pilots.
Oh, yeah.
Which went out to Saudi Arabia. So my first real experience of travelling, it was before the Gulf War, was spending 6 months in Saudi Arabia, that was an interesting experience.
Very different Saudi Arabia from now, yeah.
For a 23-year-old, that was like, whoa. But again, interesting, enjoyed it. Bit long, 6 months.
I can imagine. Saudi Arabia's kind of becoming more popular now, isn't it? I think, especially in the last few years. Well, from what I see and stuff, but I imagine it was very different back then, was it?
Yeah, it was, especially if you're a real lady. Which, yeah, again, that's interesting. I'm not going to go into that side of things.
We're not talking about that today. So then, what was next then? So what were you thinking? Like, what direction were you want to take your career?
I actually thought I'd be a 3D systems for my lifetime, really, because I enjoyed it so much.
Yeah.
Something happened there that I decided to leave. Don't really want to go into that effect.
Yeah.
When things start affecting your family, then you have to put your family first.
Exactly, yeah.
So then I ended up leaving and setting up a business and running a company where I bought a printer from 3D Systems. Yeah.
So what did you do then at 3D Systems specifically? What was your job role and what were you responsible for?
So I was basically the applications engineer. So because I had the experience of model making things, doing things, my role was to go in there and try and come up with new ideas for what they could use it for so that they could find new customers.
Yeah.
So the first one was basically, has anybody spoken to Formula One? Mm-hmm. I said, because at the time it used to be called rapid prototyping as well. That's another thing.
Okay.
And they said, has anybody spoken to these guys? Because a Formula One car is a continuous prototype. Changes race to race.
Yeah.
And they said,
a lot
no.
Of money in that as well, I imagine.
So they said no. So I ended up, luckily enough, to actually go in there and start educating people on how to use it in that industry, which was really cool.
How did you get the in though? Because I imagine it's not easy to just find someone on LinkedIn.
Well, the salespeople knew a few people. I'd already spoken to the people at Jordan Grand Prix, which is a long time ago. They don't exist anymore. When I was at Liverpool University. And what was interesting is, at the time, the F1 teams had only just started looking into CAD, which is the 3D design. They didn't have it. It was all done on a drawing board.
Mental thinking back, isn't it?
Yeah. But then, there's some of my good friends there. There is another podcast that's not long ago. I wouldn't say it's a podcast because it hasn't got a video, but it's, again, like I said to you earlier,
an audio podcast. Yeah,
it's just two people, just two friends, just chatting about what we did in the past. But the reason it's only come out now is because in 20 years ago they wouldn't let us talk about it because it was sort of giving secrets away, and it did take a long time to get it approved, even though it's 25 years later. But that's a good listen as well because it's just like two buddies chatting.
Where can people find that?
It is on LinkedIn, and it was also done through the TCT magazine, which is Time Compression Technologies, and that's the main magazine in our industry, basically.
We have to link it in the show notes if they want.
It is a bit of fun. We should, somebody told us we should do a second one from the pub.
Definitely, yeah. Might as well. There's no harm in doing that. So yeah, Formula One. So how was that? I'd imagine that was a lot of fun and you learned a lot.
Yeah, it was
made a bit of money as well, probably. I'd imagine.
It was a lot of fun because, at the time I liked it. It was a sport I liked anyway. I like cars.
Yeah. I was speaking that before the podcast.
Yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? You're involved with people right at the front end of it. But again, it's interesting for an artist to go into an engineering world because everybody just automatically thought I was an engineer. Yeah. And then I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's a positive thing because what you realise, and this is something I try and get at, if you have people that all think the same way, you'll get some changes, but there'll be minor changes. Whereas if you get people from different genders, different cultures, all sat around the table discussing the same thing, you're going to get some massive ideas that you wouldn't normally get. Yeah. And I think that's why it's important to include everybody in everything. Definitely. That's how we're going to change the future.
Yeah, because if everyone did think the same, then nothing would change.
No, your cars wouldn't change, the design wouldn't change.
And really, most people don't even like change, do they? They're quite happy in their own routine and doing the same thing over and over again. I'm culprit that I like to eat the same food, do the same thing, my daily routine, but you've got to push yourself out of your comfort zone, whatever that may be, and be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's the only way you can grow.
I think that's part of why I said this now with the sort of neurodiversity. I think that's why I am the way I am. It's because I always want to do new things. I'm the other way. It's that and doing something new that hasn't been done for it. That's the bit that actually I chase.
Yeah.
When someone we've had a couple of things where someone will say that you can't do that. That's impossible. You can't do that. And then you go back and you go, there you go. And they're like, okay. But some of the problems I've come across, you can fix really quickly. Other ones have taken years.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you'll see something and you go, hang on a minute, that might work with this. And then it does. And that's the other thing, the applications that you get through industry, whether it's aerospace, automotive, motorsport, medical, they cross. So you can use one part with another company. So, so
that's good.
Yeah, and in the end, again, if you look at Formula One, a lot of the stuff that happens in Formula One transfers through to standard automotive companies in the end.
Yeah, so it's
have you ever heard of KERS?
No.
Right, so what KERS is, it's basically, like when now you get an electric car, and they call it regen, so it puts power back into the battery.
Yeah.
Well, F1 invented this thing called KERS. I think they invented it, but basically it went on all race cars. So when they took the foot off the accelerator, the power from the energy created by the braking went back into the battery.
Oh yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
I think they could just call it in a normal electric car now. They just call it regen. So basically, if you're driving along, you'll feel it. You take your foot off the accelerator, it brakes on its own, and what it's doing is taking that energy, sticking it back into the battery.
Yeah, that's interesting. So then, What else did you do then before you decided to leave 3D Systems?
Well, to be honest, worked with all sorts of people, companies. The car manufacturers were one of the first people I got involved in 3D printing. So Ford and Dunton, Jaguar Land Rover, met some good people there as well. Again, mentors.
Yeah.
People from a lot of the universities had the machines. And it's interesting now. I met a few of the people at an event the other week, and it's great to see them.
Yeah.
You know, these mentors, and it's really interesting that, you know, when you go through life, I think we said this earlier on, you go through life and you have these mentors. And I remember I just do my job and I love it.
Yeah.
And you just do it. You just take it. I suppose you take it for granted a little bit. There's only one time that I realised that, hang on a minute, I must be getting pretty good at this. And it was, I went to an event. Somebody said to me, there's two people looking for him. He said, I can't remember who they are. And then he went, I've got it. And he said these two names, and I'm like, okay. And then I got back to my hotel that night, and I just thought, man, these are two of my mentors were trying to find me for my help, and that was a weird experience.
Yeah, that is weird, isn't it? The whole turnaround.
Yeah, and that's why I like sharing my knowledge now. You know, it's not about me. It's, for me, the passion is about the industry. I get frustrated that it's taken so long. Yeah. There's a massive education needs to be done for this industry. The good thing is now the passion that you see in the younger people, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. You know, and I'm if any younger people in this industry are listening to this and they want to talk to me how we can work together and share my knowledge, that's fine. There's 30 years of it in here. Some of it we couldn't talk about. Yeah, and then we've set a group of us set up a LinkedIn group. And it's actually for people that have been in the industry for however long to share applications. So that some of these new people that are coming along and developing an application, they can go, actually, that was done before. So we can start at that point. So instead of going over old stuff again, there's a place where they can actually go and look and say, okay, that was done. Now with that, we can use that as our step forward.
Yeah, that's good.
So that's only been up about a month and a half. But the hard bit is getting people to get involved. Yeah. Lots of people are joining it, and then it's actually getting to contribute is the difficult bit.
Yeah. It's just me. I suppose that's a hard thing, isn't it? Keeping people interested and getting them to just start. The starting's the hardest bit. But like you say, if you've only been going a month, you've got plenty of time to
yeah,
go.
But I don't want to be. Well, the thing is with me, I'm like conscious that if I keep posting, it's like people are going to think, well, it's all about you. And I'm like, no, I don't want it to be. That's totally opposite to what we want, what we need.
I think maybe something like that, it's finding out who's in the group and the messaging directly, even though it's more time. It depends how much help you want to go. And yeah, people need to be more proactive, don't they? Because you don't want to just be like, this is our group and I'm going to help you do this. And what help do you need? And that's a bit too keen, isn't it? But if you say, oh, thanks for joining the group. If there's anything you need to be help or anything you're not sure on, feel free to ask me. And then you put the ball in their court, don't you? Something like that. Because like you say, you don't want to just say, here's all the information we've got and there it is. And it's like, what is the point? And
it's also other people's view on it and how they got there. It's not actually, it's actually the complete story of what they've done. And we are getting that now. You know, there's a lot of, like I said, some of the mentors I had, they've come on there. And one of them was actually just put an idea and I'm like, I'm using that. Yeah. And it's a simple thing for helping people drill holes straight. I need that because I'm terrible at drilling holes. But it's a really simple thing that can help others. So
that's cool though. So then you decided to leave 3D Systems then, set up on your own.
Yeah.
Had you always wanted to have your own business?
No, I just needed to find a job. So there was one of the customers that we were talking to about selling a machine, and he was up in Manchester. So I ended up saying, look, mate, if you need someone to run it, I'll do it. And that happened. So.
Oh, that's cool. What was the feeling like then? Was it scary, exciting, a bit apprehensive?
Didn't have a clue. Apprehensive, never. Most things in my life, I don't plan things. Yeah. As you found out with your questions. I just go with your feelings, I think. Which I think sometimes can be a bit of a downfall as well.
It can be good and bad. I feel like some people try and plan things too much, don't they? just example that might be relatable to people. Like, I want to find a girlfriend or boyfriend by like 24, then I want to have a kid by 26 and then be married and etc. And if they don't, they get disappointed, don't they? But if you just go with the flow, you think, oh, that's nice. I've found a girlfriend, or I've had a kid, or I've got a dog, and you're just not putting pressure on yourself. Because if you put pressure on yourself, then you're your own worst enemy.
I think the other thing, I think people, especially younger people, they got so much pressure anyway, off everything, off everybody. And that's, as a young person, it's harder to deal with.
Social media and stuff puts a lot of pressure on people, doesn't it? I think
social media is interesting. Like I said, I've managed to use LinkedIn positively, which I hope it's positively, I met a lady at an event last time. She said, "Oh, read your post." I said, "Oh, positive, I hope." And she said, "Yeah." But I do tend to speak my mind. But again, that's part of me.
Yeah, but not everyone's going to like you, though, are they? And I think it's just one of them things where, for me personally, I just think, I've got friends in real life and they like me for some reason. So other people will like me, but not everybody is going to like me. And that's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I actually don't think like that at all.
No? How do you see it?
Well, I say, if I see something that I like, there's a lot of stuff going on in 3D printing. Yeah. And it is all amazing.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's things that I personally don't like. But I don't want to I don't like upsetting people. That's one thing it's not in me. So the difficult bit is for me is if I'm talking, people can see my emotions and and they can get that. I'm not like, hey,
he's not bullshitting.
This is rubbish. But so the hard bit for me is actually trying to get that into text because I tend, and this is to find out with the sort of ADHD, I tend to write what I think. And then I just read it and I go, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
But when I actually read it later, I go, actually, that's not, because it comes across wrong and I don't mean to be like that. So there's things on 3D printing that I find strange. So, but the application is still really interesting. But personally, I don't like things. So I do actually say things.
Yeah, but that's real though, isn't it? You're not going to like everything, are you?
Nope. That's life, isn't it?
You should try videos and saying it.
Yeah, that's probably, No, who wants to see my ugly face all the time? There you go.
Everyone's scared of doing videos, but you should just do it.
Yeah.
So then, obviously, like you said, started doing that one client, was it? Running the 3D
Yeah, it was my own company with a guy, yeah.
Yeah, and then how did things kind of...
Bad experience in the end with that one.
Really?
Yeah.
The first one, did not scare you off?
It caused me to have a breakdown, so...
Yeah. Why? Was it just like doubt yourself?
No, the guy was a bully, so I worked with someone that really wasn't a nice person. Came across as a nice person at one point. I stuck at it for years and years, and all of a sudden I just had a meltdown, basically. Made me stronger.
Yeah. Came on the other side.
Yeah. It's like talking about this. I think at my age now, I think it's good to talk about things like this because it happens to other people, and one of the reasons I talk about it. And also, if I see someone being bullied, I will say something to them.
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to go through what I want, because it's horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Did it not put you off from carrying on with your own business then, or?
I ended up going back and work for someone else then.
Yeah.
But no, again, it wasn't a nice experience, but it's part of my life experience. I suppose it makes you who you are.
Exactly, yeah.
Makes you stronger. It made me, well, I said, as some people have seen, if people get to sort of, if they start to sort of get to the point where they're like, I see them bullying or they with me, I just put a stop to it straight away.
Yeah.
I've been there, got that t-shirt, not happening again.
Yeah. Why not? It's a funny one, isn't it? People are maybe just insecure in themselves, isn't it? Or
I think that's what you realise as you get older. For some of them, I actually feel like going back to that particular person. Say, actually, were you bullied when you were younger?
Yeah. Because I know, like someone I went to school with in a few years after we left, and he was saying, yeah, I was just really insecure and that's why I did it. And like, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because not obviously why you bully people, but why you like take the mick or take the piss out of people, because you didn't want people to do it to you, so you kind of like gaslight them and you're just doing other people being like, and that kind of thing. But
I've always been a person that, even I remember I was bullied, not majorly bullied in school, because I was quiet anyway. But again, it's interesting now finding about the ADHD and looking back in your life. And part of this, being neurodiverse, is you're very, very focused on right and wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, that's part of it. So you basically have to stand up for what's right.
Yeah.
You don't get, it's not a choice. It's physically, it's consciously in your mind all the time. Yeah. So I remember a young lad, I think I must have been about 12, and he came round and wanted my dinner money.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you're not having it. But then he goes down and he was with other lads. And I thought, that's just wrong. I went straight to the headmaster. Yeah. Yeah, like, probably a lot of people say, oh, he's a snitch. It was nothing to do with that. I just didn't like the fact that he was picking on other people. Yeah. You find, and what's interesting as well is you find karma plays a lot with things.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Right? And I've seen these, well, a couple of these people are not on the planet anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you just think, you know, but I just couldn't sit there and let someone go through that. And I said, we're having a breakdown when it happened sort of majorly. After that, I was like, no, that's not happening to me. And if I see somebody doing it to someone else, I actually pull them up.
Yeah.
But they don't like it.
Yeah, well, they don't.
Or they actually think I'm being aggressive. But there's a reason behind it, because I don't want that person. I think what happens, again, with people like that, you don't realise, especially when they're kids, you don't realise how that affects your life in the future.
Yeah, kids are brutal, though, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. And now it's even worse, you know. Look at what happens on social media.
Yeah.
You know, and how, people can say, I'll just turn it off.
It's not that easy.
But you can't, because once it's said, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it sticks with you.
Yeah.
So let's talk about business today then. So what, if people are thinking 3D printing, but yeah, is this right for my business, or what? Who is 3D printing for, and who's it right for?
Everybody.
Yeah. Why?
You know, basically, 3D printing, you know, when it first came out, we were making bits for cars and bits for, you know, they make bits for rockets now. So majorly it was cars, aerospace, motorsport, medical, which is really brilliant, using it to make making people's lives better.
Yeah.
You know, that's well, to me, that's amazing. When it's
brilliant, isn't it?
I think, what's it called? There's a company called Hero Arms.
Okay.
And it was actually it was on BBC not so long ago, and it's for people and children that have got a limb missing, the bottom of the limb missing. So they can go and pick an arm, and because they used to be really expensive, but now because of 3D printing, it's becoming more affordable. Right? So you've got young people going around with like a Iron Man arm.
Yeah, that's cool.
And to help people, this young lad, I think he actually went for an Iron Man arm, but he can do like 4 or 5 things. Whereas before he couldn't do anything, and that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
You know, that's changed. It's changing the world, and I think there's so many applications out there that haven't even been looked at yet.
Yeah.
And the only way you'll do it is like if you talk to people like I'm talking to you now. Earlier on we said about the horse.
Yeah.
The only reason that happened is because
tell people about the horse, because obviously
this has been on LinkedIn all the time anyway. So most people know about it, and it was basically a horse that had an illness called equine cancer. Equine canker, it's called. And it's basically like a mold in the foot. It keeps growing. And it's because it's like a fungus. Basically, they try and treat it. The horse is walking around, it gets wet again, and it just goes round and round and round. But I didn't know about it. And then the lady that owns the horse knew I did 3D printing, and she said, can you come and look at this? So they approached me, and we had a look, and all it was sat together with me, the owner, the vet, and the farrier. I said, right, explain to me what it is. So then I found out, okay, it's a fungal growth. It keeps coming back if it gets wet, so we've got to keep the horses who've dry. So the first thing I thought of straight away was baby's nappies. So inside a baby's nappy, there's a thing called silica, and it soaks up moisture. But the problem is, on this horse, is when you dug it all out, there was like open wounds. So then you're thinking, actually, will silica cause other problems with that? So that was like put on hold. And then we made basically a simple gasket that when they put the medication in and it was nailed on in between the shoe and the foot, it sealed it closed so that it gave the medication time to work.
Yeah.
But again, that is an application that just happened because I'm near, my business is near this riding school.
Mm.
But there's so many things like this that we haven't even come across. And it's because people aren't aware of what we can do.
Mm. Why do you think that is then? Why do you think people aren't aware? Because like you say, you've been doing it for 30 years now, and you thought that we'd be where we are now 10 years into that.
Yeah.
But what do you think has stopped the awareness or the exposure?
A lot of it has been, first of all, I think a lot of it was the cost of the machines to start off with. So they were inaccessible to everybody.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, the smaller machines became available. And then people use them at home now. I've got one in the back in the shed later. I'll show you if you want. I've seen it working.
Yeah.
So I've got one around there. And I use that all the time.
Yeah.
If my granddaughter breaks a toy, I'll fix it. And the other thing is I'll make it better so it doesn't break again. I've made parts for bits in here when I buy something and it won't fit properly. So I'll go with 20 minutes. I've actually got one that will work properly. Mm-hmm. But that's the main reason is people didn't know about it. People are starting to know about it now. But it's still lack of education. And that's part of that's one of the things I'm really keen on is I call it STEAM education. That's one of my pet hates is
STEAM education.
Right, I'll explain. Have you heard of STEM?
Maybe. Science,
technology, engineering and maths. Engineering and maths, but basically I'm promoting STEAM because I'm an artist, so I'm like, why have you missed the A out?
Yeah. Be a bit different though, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it is getting there now, and I think that's one of the things. Again, it's inclusion. It's including everybody.
Yeah.
You know,
because when you see it's getting out there now, but why do you think it's only starting to get out there now? Because that's what I'm trying to.
It's mainly because of the sort of people being able to buy machines.
Okay.
There's a group of us trying to get this, which we've been trying to get this on a curriculum in schools for years.
Yeah.
Which is difficult because you've got to find who's the best person in the government to speak to about it. And so there are companies like, so I'm part of a group or a company. There's a company called Create Education. Mm-hmm. And what they do is they actually put these machines into schools.
Yeah.
And I'm an ambassador, so what I do is I go into the schools with the machine. We teach the kids how to use it.
That's cool.
But then what's happened is in Lancashire, so BAE Air Systems, they've actually donated, I think, 50 machines. And the reason they've done it is they've actually given the machines to schools in Lancashire so that potential, apprentices already know how to use the tech that they're using in the factory.
That's going to save training costs, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but it isn't. But then that's good because that's getting the education out there. And one thing I found recently is on a couple of the visits I've given with these kids and I'm talking about it, there's a handful of them actually now got printers.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah. And a lot of people they don't think about buying one. Yeah. And then I said to them, right, who owns a PlayStation or whatever? And they all do. And I said, do you actually realise you can buy a printer for cheaper than that? And they're like, what? So it's really interesting. Now, I've got a young lad that came to see down to my factory. His dad said, can I bring my son down? He's an autistic young lad. He came to see me. Me and him were chatting for 3 hours. He was so interested in it, passionate about it. It was like, and he's like, which one should I buy? And I said, don't buy any. So at the moment, I said, you go away, teach yourself how to do CAD, learn how to draw stuff. I said, I'll set you a couple of projects. I said, come and use our machines. Yeah. Yeah, and then you can find out which is the best, which one you want to use.
Which one you like, yeah.
Yeah, and also, the other side of it is you can buy machines now which use resins. And when I was taught to use these machines, these resins they came with a MSDS, so a safety data sheet. Now you can go buy this resin online. No safety data sheet, so nobody knows how to,
Yeah.
But by the way, you should be wearing gloves when you use that. Nobody sells them that. And that's the scary bit.
So that's like you say, educating people, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's it. There is, and that's part of this group. Hopefully, is educating. I actually set up another group which is gone nuts. We set one up on Facebook with someone I bought a 3D scanner from, And there's 40,000 people on it now.
It's a lot of people, isn't it?
And it's people that are talking to each other, helping each other fix the machines.
It's a community. I think Facebook groups are a great place to build community, like you say. That's what you want, isn't it? You have a group and then other people are just talking. You're not just posting like you're on LinkedIn, just thinking, oh, my annoying people, but they're helping each other. And that's
for me, I guess the scary bit for me is, as an admin, I want to try and not control it, but I want to make sure there's no bullying on it.
Yeah.
And there are times when I've had to ban people, and you just think, man, why are you doing that? Yeah. It's a group to help people, so what's the point in doing this?
There's always going to be an odd one or two, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I think, like, if you got that group, post a video a week, couldn't you, about educating people about the awareness and the safety and whatever, because powerful, you know what I mean?
Maybe videos is a good way of doing it, because, again, I try and talk to people about it, and they just think you're having a go. And that's not the idea. The idea is, like I said, one guy posted a picture, and he's got this big burn mark on his hand. And he's joking that he says, look, this resin will remove anything. Yeah. And I actually wrote to him, I said, you actually got what's called, you've become sensitized to the material. And he said, well, what does that mean? So it means that if you go anywhere near that material, you get some on you. That's going to happen every time now.
Yeah.
But they don't know because nobody's taught.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just educating people and putting the awareness out there so people understand, isn't it? Because if you could help even just one person, that's more than...
but it's not just about me. I said that, so classic, this is how I do things, right? So I had a problem the other week.
Yeah.
I had a guy that helped me, because I'm a person that I always want to learn.
Oh, yeah. People that don't want it, then you're never going to...
So I had a problem with my machine. Been talking to a guy that lives in Alaska, helping him with his machine. And I said, you had this problem the other week. What did you do? Yeah. He tells me. I go and do it, fixes the machine, and I'm like, thanks a lot for that, mate. Yeah. And it just shows you that it doesn't matter. It's you can't learn everything. It's impossible. Yes. Right? So having that community and getting, I asked, this guy's he's only had his printer, about 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, no, but maybe 2 or 3 months, sorry. And stupidly, I just picked the phone up, forgot where he lives.
Yeah. Woke up in the middle of the night.
6 o'clock in the morning. Right? Because he's in Alaska, and I'm like, oh man. Yeah. But then I'm a person that, like, I'm doing stuff and putting stuff on my printer at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it's just so you just don't think. I just did it, and it's like, man, I should have thought about that a bit more.
Yeah, definitely. But then let's speak about the ADHD stuff, because that's one thing you wanted to bring awareness about as well, didn't you? You said you were happy to talk about.
Yeah, it's a big decision to talk about it because it's made me who I am. Yeah. But the reason I decided to talk about it and let people know more is, if we can educate young people and it helps them to sort of realize that, it doesn't stop you doing things. I was on a talk. I'm with the other day, not a talk, but it was a meeting with about 5 or 6 other people that I've just found out, and they're a lot younger than me. So you have to introduce yourself, and I'm like, and then they found out you're a successful businessman, you've got your own business, and then you could see, wow, this doesn't have to hold us back. Yeah. So I think, and actually talking to these people, it made them open up, because at first they try and get you to communicate and talk, because you're talking to strangers.
Yeah, who are you? Why should I share this with you? It's like a private thing, isn't it?
What I found is, because I've made that decision that I want to try and make a difference and help people. And I do this with everything. It's not just ADHD, it's the industry. It's my passion for it. That side of it, those people then, all 6 of them started talking. Yeah. Started telling us about their experiences and how they dealt with it. And if me being able in a position where I can talk about it, and it helps other people to become able to talk about it, then so be it.
Yeah. Because then when was the moment that you thought you wanted to like test or find out and that kind of thing? Because you said you didn't find out until like recently, and obviously, I don't know. I know one of my friends, he found out when he was like really young, and then he had medication all throughout school and stuff. But obviously, you've gone throughout life and only recently found out.
Well, I'm an autistic son, so and I went to meetings, realised that when I'm sat in a meeting, read things on boards, I'm thinking, yeah, that's me. even my wife said to me, "You've got 8 of them things." I went, "Yeah, no." So, but I never did anything about it, and I suppose I did it because I wanted to see, hopefully, be able to talk to my son and say, "Look, it isn't you, mate. It's hereditary," and give him an explanation, because I think that's the hardest thing for people is you don't know why, and you want to know why. So I just did a test at home, and they said possible. So I thought, I'll go and get tested properly. And I actually went and get tested properly. And then when they came back, they said, "Yeah, you've got autism, but you also need to be tested for this." I'm like, right, okay. So when I had that done, and it was an interesting experience when you find out. It was like, okay, that explains a lot. It explains sometimes why people think I'm abrupt. Explain to me why sometimes I think I'm abrupt, but I don't mean to do it. So it was, an eye-opener. And then it was a couple of months, then you're thinking, that explains lots. And then, you just think, you go to the other side of it, where you just think, man, if I'd have known this earlier, this wouldn't have happened. Maybe this wouldn't have happened. But I'm a person, normally, I don't normally look back. I'm a person that always looks forward. Like even my wife now, she'll say, half the time I can't even remember what I did yesterday because I'm thinking about what I'm doing next. Yeah, and that's just how I am. So I think being able to talk about it, I think as you get older, you're able to talk about it. It's still emotional. I was at a TCT Awards ceremony the other week, and as a young lad got awarded the first award for a person with neurodiversity. He won it. Absolutely amazing. His speech, the young lad, he's only 16, he stood on stage in front of probably a couple of hundred people, and it's hard for a seasoned person to make a speech and say thanks for the award. Absolutely amazing. But it was interesting for me because I'm sat there and thinking, man, he's talking fast. But then I'm thinking, but I do that. And that's part of...
Well, you said that before. So you said, tell me to speak slower, but you're speaking decently fast. I thought you'd like... But no, So you obviously had your son, whatever, wasn't it, who got tested, and that kind of sparked it. Then you got the result to go. But had you ever thought before to get tested? Or was it just...
No, never.
Because what advice would you give to somebody maybe who's thinking, well, I think like that, or I do things like that, I'm abrupt or whatever, and because I imagine it could be quite a scary thing, because some people may not want to know the answer to why they act like that, mightn't they?
I think that was one of the questions they sort of, when they phone you up, was, do you want to know, or do you just want to wait for the piece of paper? And I said, I just want to know. I'd advise you to do it, because I think, what I found, this is just me personally now, the medication was like turning a light switch on. Whenever I work on projects, I've got hundreds of projects going on, and then they're constantly, like I said to you, they're constantly running in my head. Always. And then I found it hard to focus on certain things. I've actually sat around tables with people from the F1 industry where we've discussed the project. And then the conversation goes elsewhere. And I'm still in the conversation that's going on the table. And then 10 minutes later, I just go, I'm in it. So I said, you can do what you said before by doing this. And then the guy said, you just thought about that? I said, yeah. And I said, how? I said, well, we were talking about it before. So in the back of my mind, it was still getting solved.
Yes.
So it's a strange... But it explains a lot. So it was interesting to...
No, definitely.
To realise that's why you think like that.
Yeah, I think, like you say, if you can help people understand why they do think like that, I think that's an amazing thing to do.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's just as you get older, you just want to... I personally have always wanted to help people, and that's another part of ADHD is you want to help people. You trust people. You constantly trust people. You're just trying to help people make things better all the time. I struggle with the stuff that's going on in the world. I'm like, some of it drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. So then, what's next for the business then? What are the plans for the business? Plans moving forward?
Well, just set up another business with a group of people that I met just by chance. And that's the other thing. I think once you've set one business up, you don't think twice about doing it again.
No, it's easy. But when you haven't done one, you think, oh, this is such a massive thing. Oh, what am I going to do?
I'll tell you what was interesting is I met a young lady at a group in the States. It's the biggest conference in the world in our industry. And it's a place where people go just to meet. And again, the conference is fine. It's the conversations and the networking that you make afterwards that makes it important. So I met this young girl and she's just set up a company up. $2 million she's got, right?
Pocket change.
Right. So then I'm like, I said, would you like to know how I set my business? I said, this is the difference between 30 years. Right? This is crowdfunding.
That's what she did.
Yeah. Right. So I said, when I set my company up, it was like, get all my credit cards, max them out, take a chance, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I've got to go and find a job. That's and if you look at how things have changed, I look at you guys now and I'm like, man, 2 million straight away. I'm like, wow,
it's crazy. I don't know,
but that's how the world's changing.
But you can set up a business with zero as well. Like say, mine didn't really cost me much. Set up on company's house for about 12 quid in the sound.
But you've got to. It's you. You know, I think that's one of a question that people ask me, do you invest in anything? The only thing I invest in is myself.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, but I don't have stocks and shares. My dad used to. I'm not interested. I'll invest my time into helping people. Like the young lad that came around and said he's got autism, looking at the machines over there. If that guy ever phones me up and wants help, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And so there's that side of it. I will always do that, invest in people. I think that's a good way of doing it.
No, definitely. I think, like you say, invest in yourself first before you're investing like the stocks and the shares and all that kind of stuff, because it can be risky, especially the way everything is at the moment. So, right, biggest mistake or biggest regret? You mentioned it before at the start. I don't know if you're going to say that one or not.
Well, there's a couple, you know. I think even the ADHD is a regret, and it's the fact that if I'd have known earlier, especially now, then things may have been different. But then you look, well, what do I need to be different about my life? Because I've been successful. Well, like you said to you before, I've had the sports cars. Yeah. Realised that they're just things, and really I got rid of them. And there's other priorities. As you get older, the other priorities become more important. I'm really passionate about educating people about this industry. You know, I said I was a vice president for AMUG for 3 years. And when I first went there, there was only like 150 people. Now there's 2,500 people go there. So, and that's things like that are important to me. Is actually, helping people use our technology better. Come along, you know. And the last time I went there, I remember sitting by a stage with a guy I've known for years, and he's got to be in his 70s now, and I haven't seen him for a long time. And he actually looks like Father Christmas. He's got this big bushy beard. And we were sat at this event, and he said to me, Andy, he said, you know what? He said, look at the kids in the audience, in the place. He said, they're full of enthusiasm. He said, I feel useless when I come here now. And the next minute, 2 young lads came over to him, and they said, Steve, we just want to thank you for your presentation. Absolutely brilliant. They were talking to him for like 15 minutes. When they went away, I just looked at him and said, so you're useless, are you? You know, but he's right, you know. What I personally know, I said, the older guys have got so much knowledge, a lot of it that we couldn't talk about. Yeah. And we should be passing it on to these kids, the younger, I don't want to call people kids because they're young adults, right? They've got that enthusiasm. I've still got it.
Oh.
Yeah. But I see that in these younger people, and you just think, well, if we can, like I've had mentors, you know, I've got to where my mentors are. So if we can help these people by sharing our knowledge and help them grow, then our industry is going to grow. More people are going to know about it, and it'll get utilized more and more. And if we can do it quickly, then hopefully it'll happen faster.
Yeah.
Because I do really find it frustrating that I'm still talking to people and go, what's 3D printing? And then you just think, right, okay.
Yeah. It is a funny one, isn't it? I don't know. Like, what are you going to do then, personally, to get 3D printing out there? Is there any?
I do everything. Like I said, I go and teach kids in the schools. I said, the young lad, I've actually donated machines to schools. It's just doing what you can to help.
Yeah.
It's frustrating that the government haven't really got involved. You know, they're trying to promote manufacturing in the UK now, and not just the UK, America, everywhere. And this is going to be a manufacturing process of the future. There's still a long way to go because you've got to look at the standards that are out there for industries. Because this is a new industry, there's no standards. So we've basically written them. I remember I remember going to get an ISO 9001, which is a certificate to say in there. And the guy just said to me, well, we can't write one for you. I said, why? He says, because we don't know what you do. Which was So he said, so I could probably help them write it. But there are people now, it's materials development. And the standards for these materials. And I've noticed in the last 5 years, has become more and more. And that's what people offering standards. But that's what we need.
Yeah.
To take it to the next step, there's got to be standards. Otherwise, you know, things will happen. There's a lot of hype as well, which is annoying.
Yeah, there's always going to be a bit of hype, isn't it? But I suppose when that dies down, that's when it'll sell.
That's part of why I set this group up. You know, I want to get rid of that hype.
Yeah. Because I suppose, like you say, if you can get rid of the hype, and then you've actually got the people who are actually really passionate and interested about it, and they're the ones that are going to take it to the next level and be in it for a long, long time, maybe.
There's a lot of people I said, okay, keep in touch with some of the older people now that are retired.
Yeah.
But they're still, again, some of those guys, the passion they've got is crazy.
Yeah.
But they're still helping.
Yeah, that's good though. You need people like that, don't you?
Yeah.
Because I think everyone can rise together, can't you? You don't have to be like constantly looking down and fighting people off. You can bring everyone on the up with you because there's enough room in the world, enough money in the world for everybody to succeed. Yeah,
if you think about it, if we all share the knowledge and applications, what all that will happen in the end, the industry is going to grow. Yeah, and there's a lot of people say, "Oh, I know that's secret." Blah blah blah. This is just my personal thing. I've always run my business by trying to do things differently, so you stay ahead of everybody else. Yeah. Tell people what you've done, and they go, hey, "That's clever. Let's do that." And then the next minute, you're doing something else.
Yeah,
yeah. So rather than saying, "Actually, let's not do that," I'm like, yeah, fine, there you go. I'm going to do the next bit.
Yeah. You've always got to be one step ahead, haven't you? Because if you're doing something good, people will want to copy. And there's no point you being like, well, I'm not telling you this, I'm not telling you that. Because they'll find out eventually, won't they?
Well, that's part of, you know, this group in the States is called Additive Manufacturing Users Group. And that's what it's for. It started off with like 150 people that bought these technologies. And basically, what do you do with it? Because it was aerospace companies, automotive. And then you go there, they don't tell you the secrets, and you don't need to tell people the secrets. You can say, well, I'm doing this with it. And then that person will go, actually, if you're doing that, maybe we could do that at our company, but in a different place. So it's just shit. It's just getting the cogs turning. That's what I do when I go into schools.
Yeah, just get them thinking.
Yeah, you get people thinking. Even when I go into customers, I'll sit in front of an outload of engineers and you go, and I say, have you thought about doing that? Have you thought about, and then they come to you afterwards. And I say, well, do you think you could do this with it? And I said, yeah, I think you could. So let's have a go. That's the other thing with me. I'm like, I always want to try. If it's never been done before,
you want to do it?
Yeah, I did an injection mold tool. So it was 3D printed mold tool. And we got it running like a real tool. But normally the tool takes 14 weeks to make, and we did it in 4 days. Yeah, so then the guy that's operating the machine, I'm like, go faster. And he looked at me and went, what? I said, I want to break it. He goes, well, we can't. I said, I want to break it. And it's like, I said, because then I know the limits. Yeah. Because that's how you learn.
Yeah.
It's like, if you think about it, land speed records and things like that.
Yeah.
These guys, they just want to go for it.
Yeah.
The car brakes, when they're doing, whatever, 800 mile an hour. But they still get out and think, right, let's fix it. I want to go faster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's a good example, though. Yeah, that is. Right, any closing thoughts? Where can people find you? Where can people follow you? Find the business? How can they get in touch?
You can get, so my business is called at 3D Squared Limited. We're online, got a website. Andrew Allshorn, if you go on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. There's Facebook pages. If you want to join the Facebook page and share your knowledge and learn stuff, then we're on there. And then the applications group is on LinkedIn. Most of my stuff's done on LinkedIn. But again, it's all about the industry and using it properly. If it comes across as being me, then I apologise, because that's not the goal.
No, I genuinely, I love how, say, even though the main aim would be to promote your business, the main thing you try to promote and push is the industry and how you help and how you want to get it out there, which is really interesting. And it just shows how, well, everyone will be able to see and hear how passionate you are about it. And that's seems to be, to me anyway, your main goal is to just get the word out there, educate people and give people more information, and just try and push that further and speed things up so people understand more. And you haven't really spoke that much about your business, to be fair, which I'm a little bit bad about. But
the business, I just to be honest, the main business is I service and maintain 3D printing machines.
Yeah.
I can get hold of them. I can give you, I can give you advice, consultancy. One of the big things, actually, which is something that we need to push, is teaching people how to choose the correct machine. I was at an event the other week and some guy had bought this metal printer, and I'm like, do you actually realise that you could have done that with a different machine for half the price? And they're like, what? And we can, instead of you building small parts this big, so we can do things that are 3 meters long. And he's like, but then that's when you realise, man, 30 years. And it's like talking to someone 30 years ago. It's just like...
That's the thing, you're in it every day, aren't you? So it's obvious to you, but for other people, they don't have a clue. You know what I mean? If I was trying to buy one, I'd be like, I have no idea which one to buy.
Yeah.
But I suppose, like you say, just getting the word out there.
I do get people actually now asking me to promote their machines on the group.
Okay.
And it's interesting because they just want you to say, can you promote Amazon? And I'm like, no. And they go, why not? I've never used it. So I can't advise someone to buy that machine because I don't know what it's like, and I won't actually do it because I don't know.
It's not genuine.
So then what I do is I've actually got people now sending me machines to test.
Yeah.
But when I've tested them, what I do is I give them away.
Yeah.
Because I can't have them all.
Yeah.
So then like I said, if I can find if one comes along and it's the right machine for this young lad that's been visiting me, he'll have it, yeah. I'll give it to him.
That's cool. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, like the video, comment your favourite part. Any questions for Andrew, leave them in the comment section below. But if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a 5-star review. Thank you very much, Andrew. Bye.
Thanks.